What do we need to know about buying a roast?
Well, all right. This is a prime rib roast.
Okay.
Now, they call it a prime rib because it comes from the rib primal. It's a muscle called the longissimus dorsi. Turn around.
Okay.
Turn around.
Oh, no. Okay.
It's this muscle here.
Keep doing that.
And it's got the rib bones attached to it. And they call it a standing rib roast because you can stand it up on the bones and such. I'm going to talk about a technique today that's a little different than what everybody does, a little different than the textbooks. We're going to talk about a technique called reverse sear.
Okay.
Now, all the cookbooks tell you you take the meat and you sear it first, then you put it in the oven. But I want you to do it differently. I want you to put it in the oven at a low temperature and sear it at the end. And we'll talk some more about it. And we got an example of why you want to do that here.
Okay, what do we do first on this?
We're going to trim this. And now if we had a half hour, we could trim it all up beautiful.
Okay.
Get your knife handy in. I want you to remove the rib bones here. Run your knife right across that bone slab there.
Okay.
And just follow the bones down and pull the bones off.
Just cutting all the ribs out.
Yes, right.
Without cutting too
all
much
the
meat
ribs
away.
out. Now, everybody thinks that the bones add flavor, but that's an old husband's tale.
Is that true?
No, the inside of the bone has marrow, and that adds tremendous flavor if you're making a stew because it's soaking in water. Water is a solvent. Water pulls the flavor out of the bone, but in a dry heating environment like your oven or on a grill, which is where I like to cook it, there's no way the marrow can get out. It's surrounded by calcium. Calcium has no flavor. And in fact, if you leave the bone in, it interferes with the heat getting into the meat. So you want to get rid of
that,
the bone.
and then we season it.
And then you want to season it.
Okay.
Okay, now, we're going to season it. Well, actually, we want to do one more thing. And we won't do it right now because it'll take too long. I want you to get rid of all the fat on the surface. Now, fat is flavor. Everybody knows that. But the flavor is the fat that's inside the meat, the marbling.
Nobody's going to eat that.
Nobody's going to eat it. If you put your seasoning on top of this and you serve it, everybody's going to cut the fat off.
Right.
And you've lost all your seasoning.
So after we cut the fat off, we season it. So we should put a little seasoning on?
Well, salt. Salt is the first thing we want to do, and salt is magic. Salt is unlike anything else. It gets deep into the meat, so if you can do it like a day or two in advance,
okay, give it a chance.
But the rest of the seasonings, the herbs and spices, take hours, and they really don't go very far beyond the surface.
Okay.
I tell you what, instead of spending a lot of time trimming this baby up, actually it only takes about 10 minutes, got one here.
Okay.
Bone is removed.
Wow.
Fat is removed, and then it's tied up into a perfect cylinder, you see?
Yeah.
Now the heat can enter it from all sides evenly. Otherwise, if you take this baby here, you can see it's like lasagna, you know, on the edges of the lasagna pan, it's overcooked. You're going to get overcooked down here where it's thin and undercooked here.
So you tie it up, you roll it up and tie it, and then you salt it?
Now we salt it a night before if we can.
And then put the rub on.
And then put the rub, and this is something that I call Mrs. O'Leary's cow crust because I'm from Chicago.
Okay. And then we cook it low and slow.
Low and slow.
Don't sear it first.
No. All right, heat is energy. The hot air in your oven cooks the outside of the meat. But the outside of the meat cooks the inside of the meat, not the hot air. So when you load it up with high heat, it overcooks the outside as it works down to the center. But if you cook it around 225, it'll cook gently and slowly, and you'll get even temperature throughout.
So 225 for how long?
Well, it depends on how thick it is. And
this piece of meat, how long will we cook this for?
Well, this will probably take about 4 hours.
Okay, and after about 4 hours, you check your internal temperature.
130 is what we like to go for.
130, and then you crank the heat up.
Well, then you take it out, and you can either put it under the broiler or on a grill. You throw it over direct heat, or you can put it in a hot pan, but then you sear it at the end. These are two different roasts, the same roast, same size originally, and we cook them differently. We cook this one at a high temperature and this one at a low temperature. This one was seared first, this one at the end.
Okay.
Cut them off. Go ahead. Take a clean knife here.
Okay, I got one here. Oh, no, that's a dirty
one.
Thank you. Okay, so this is the one that's low and slow.
Low and slow, and look at that nice even color.
This is the one that was seared. Wow, you can even feel it when you cut it. So this one is much smaller.
Yeah, it shrank
and it was
due to the
a little
heat.
You can feel it with the knife.
And you can see it's tan along the outside, which is overcooked. This one is the even color throughout. It's the same color throughout, and it's cooked perfectly, edge to edge. 130 is the temperature I like to go for because it gets the most tender and the most juicy, and that's medium rare, just like that. And don't worry, that's not blood. That's pink water. Meat is 70% water. It gets its tint from a protein called myoglobin. Every time you call it blood, Clarence, somewhere in Indiana, a bell rings and a teenager becomes a vegan.
Yeah. So I'm gonna cut a little piece off. Meathead. That's amazing.